Bulls are not just muscular animals with sharp horns. Their ability to adapt to their environment is amazing. Some species of bull can dive and graze underwater, while others are super quick. Some of them are even used in chariot races. Now we'll tell you about some of the most unique bulls in the world. The yak is probably one of the most beautiful bull types in the world. It looks like a plush toy size of a small car, but of course it is instead a living creature and not a toy. And the unusual appearance of this animal is the result of its adaptation to life in very extreme conditions. The uniqueness of the yak is that it can withstand very cold weather very well. It must be able to withstand extremely cold temperatures, strong winds, and unbelievable frosts. Yaks do not live at the North Pole, but rather in the Himalayan mountains. The average bull barely would last an hour up there. Instead, yaks are comfortable in temperatures that can turn tears into ice chips while still on their eyelashes. The higher up in the mountains, the less oxygen there is in the air. As a result, both animals and humans, if they are in such conditions, feel the lack of air even when breathing heavily. But this is not a problem for the yak because compared to the size of its body, it has enlarged lungs and an enlarged heart. In addition, the blood of the yak carries a lot of oxygen compared to the blood of other mammals. However, this superpower is beyond the animal's control. If it tries to come down from the mountains, it will simply suffer from overheating and a high oxygen content in its blood. Because it is almost never warm up high in the mountains, wild yaks have poor abilities to expel their own heat. They have almost no sweat glands, and a climate that seems cool to us, the yak would suffer extremely from while overheating and possibly having a heat stroke. Yaks were domesticated about 3,000 years ago. How this happened remains a mystery to today. What is certain is that the wild yak does not take well or tolerate to land developed by man. They hate agricultural land, they avoid humans, and they have a ferocious temper. It takes a dozen wild wolves to take care of one adult yak. Although this animal does avoid humans, it has little or no fear of them. But somehow, some of these animals have been tamed. Yaks also fight with one another, usually for females. Most two-horned and other horned animals fight with their horns in these such cases, but the yak is extremely cruel. He tries to attack his opponent in order to inflict a serious wound. However, in most cases, these fights are not fatal and both opponents survive, although usually after suffering some bruising and some bleeding. As a result, the domestic yak was born, a very important animal for many Himalayan peoples. It gives them access to wool and milk and is used as a pack animal. The domestic yak is much smaller than the wild yak, and it has a much more calm character. The wild yak is about 6 feet long and weighs up to a ton. The length of the male wild yak is more than 14 feet. This makes it one of the largest mountain animals in the world. Domesticated yaks are almost a quarter of the size, but they can also live outside of the mountains, and while they tolerate animal husbandry, they have also retained the resilience of their wild ancestors. Domestic yaks are crossbred with other species and breeds of cattle, including those that live in relatively warm and humid climates. Crossbreeding is often used to give the hybrid a much more docile character. Although the domestic yak is a phlegmatic animal, it is still quite stubborn and the farmer has to be careful with them. The zebu is a very common animal in the Indian subcontinent. To most people in other parts of the world, these animals seem quite rare. A bull with thin but strong legs. It has a hump like a camel and the powerful horns that are pointing upwards rather than forwards. These horns grow in different ways. Sometimes they curve and point straight ahead above the animal's head. Sometimes they're directed backwards. The zebu have a unique ability. They have grown to be excellent runners. Zebu are much more tough and heavier than horses, but they can run almost as fast as the best thoroughbred horses. However, zebu are best not to ride because of their clumsy nature and their weird, peculiar build. This is why zebu racing is very popular in India, especially in the western states of the country. The amazing thing about these animals is that they do not require a special track to race these animals. Of course, it is not necessary to lead them into the thick of the jungle because such a large zebu cannot simply just pass through it, but a difficult terrain zebu will pass through like an off-road vehicle. Would you like to ride the trail for these animals? Let us know in the comments below. Huge speed, stamina, and walkability are not the only virtues of this animal. Although camels are not close relatives of the zebu, both animals do have a hump. Scientists still do not know the exact function of the hump of the zebu. Camels need the hump to store their nutrients. Of course, it is not pure water that is stored there, but rather water reserves. But in times of prolonged starvation, it is thanks to these reserves that the camel has that they can survive without food and water for as long as any other animal in the world. Here is another argument in favor of the habit of saving. For example, the hump of the zebu, although dense and fat, actually consists mainly of muscles. In rams, it is poorly developed. Adults have quite large humps that stand out straight from the back of the animal, but as to why this happens is still a mystery. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments below. We're very interested to hear what you think. Also, a zebu, interestingly enough, can growl and sort of sounds like a lion. What would your reaction be if you heard something similar while walking in India? By the way, zebu are not actually related to ordinary cows. The ancestor of the European cow, from which most of the world's breeds came from, is the Eurasian aurochs. The ancestor of the zebu is the Indian auroch. These dispersed about 300,000 years ago. The first zebu appeared in Indonesia, but a few centuries ago they spread to Asia and then to Africa and now kind of all over the world. The zebu is valued for its hardiness, as they have perfectly adapted to life in hot and arid, or on the contrary, in humid, more tropical lands. Genetically, however, this species is not too far removed from its European relative, so they can be interbred with one another and produce healthy and even sometimes very healthy offspring with excellent, strong immune systems. The zebu also produces very fatty and nutritious milk, but in much smaller quantities than the European cow. Perhaps that is why there are more zebu than people in Madagascar. However, it's not only for practical reasons that the animal plays an important role in the local culture. The water buffalo is best known for its size. It is about 78 inches high at the withers, about 120 inches long, and can weigh more than a ton. Not bad, right? Such a mountain of muscle can uproot trees, fight tigers, and be a battering ram capable of tearing down anything in its path. But what few people know is that this buffalo's real superpower has nothing to do with his strength or fighting skills. It turns out that this buffalo is one of the best swimmers of all cattle. About 70% of the buffalo's diet consists of plants that grow underwater. To feed on them then, it has learned to dive better than most land mammals. The buffalo can hold its breath for such a long time that even excellent divers, such as polar bears, otters, and beavers, would envy this ability. But most importantly, this animal is capable of grazing underwater. You wouldn't expect such an ability from a buffalo, would you? Most terrestrial animals avoid diving, even if they do have the ability to swim. And even if the animal is able to swim, then diving, biting, and swallowing food underwater is probably dangerous for it, and it could easily drown, but this is not the case with the water buffalo. Most of the time while grazing, it keeps its head submerged in water and calmly chews and swallows its food. These buffalo are especially fond of swampy areas, stagnant lakes, and wide, slow-flowing rivers. However, its physique is not much like that of aquatic animals. Not only do they have a huge, powerful torso, but they also have really strong legs and very pronounced hooves. Therefore, they don't have such advantages like having fins or even a close to aerodynamic shape. Most surprisingly, possibly, is that in terms of swimming and diving skills, the water buffalo approaches its very distant relative, the whale. It's a bit of a shock, but whales and dolphins are not related to other aquatic predators such as seals. Whales are the distant relatives of ungulates that roamed the ocean millions of years ago. Who knows, maybe in millions of years from now, the water buffalo will be something like the whale. At least water has excellent carrying capability, allowing these animals to grow to gigantic sizes. So what do you see as their kind of development trajectory? Answer in the comments below. Unlike most other herbivores, bulls are famous for preferring to face danger in battle rather than trying to escape. Even larger-sized antelopes are afraid to fight with lions and other predators, even if they are larger in size. But bulls are a different matter. When they see a hunter, they're more likely to fight back and even attack first if they feel threatened. The main weapon of bulls is their incredible strength, but also their powerful horns. Given their arrogant and cocky nature, the Texas breed of longhorned bulls are intimidating just to look at. These bulls have the longest horns in the world. A single horn of theirs can reach 6 feet, corresponding to the height of an adult male. At the same time, the horns are proportional, powerful at the base, and gradually tapering to a very sharp point. So a weapon like this can enable a bull to fight a saber-toothed tiger. To say that ordinary wolves or cougars don't even come close to this bull is terrifying. It seems that this mighty creature could pierce a tank with its horns, but where in Texas did this treasure of a creature come from? It turns out that longhorns are an ancient breed with centuries of history. These bulls are descended from the first cattle imported during the times of Columbus. Living in relative isolation led to the formation of the breed's unusual qualities, which have only been cemented over time. Most surprisingly, Texas Longhorns have an incredibly gentle character. They are non-aggressive, loyal to people, and characterized by patience, even compared to the regular harmless domestic cows. Obviously, if you're really confident, you shouldn't try to resolve conflict by force. Why attack someone if they know not to mess with you? You might actually be surprised as to what the superpower is for the Longhorns. It has nothing to do with the phenomenal fighting skills or horns. The body of this bull also looks quite typical, a muscular, well-built animal with no hump, large belly, or other features. A massive animal, but slender and even more remarkable for its ability to withstand extreme heat and drought. The Longhorn's superpower is its ability to survive in the harshest desert conditions. They can go longer without food and water than any other breed or subspecies of bull, although they are known for their mild temperament. They can face a predator with ease. All of this allows Texas ranchers to allow longhorn herds to graze relatively free, even in rather harsh areas where ordinary cattle would not survive attacks by mountain lions, wolves, or let alone the lack of water. With excellent physical characteristics, its loyalty to humans, and endurance, it's no wonder people were long ago attracted to horses. Not surprisingly, longhorns are increasingly being used as riding animals. Not only this, but these bulls are pretty easy to ride, and they're also able to communicate with humans almost as well as horses do. Now, this breed is still mostly used for meat production, but who knows? Maybe they will become the world's first breed of riding bulls. That would be great, given the animal's unusual appearance. Would you like to ride such an animal? Please let us know in the comments below. What unique species of cattle that we discussed here caught your attention the most? Let us know in the comments below, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. There's a whole bunch more interesting and unusual creatures in the world of bulls that we want to tell you about.